The sound hit the table so hard it cut through the room like a crack in ice. The board attorney dropped a thick file in front of my new boss and said, "Did you abuse your position to settle a personal grudge?" Claire Danvers froze. For the first time since she took control of the department, her smile collapsed. Her fingers twitched near the folder, as if touching it might burn her. I sat on the other side of the conference table, hands in my lap, keeping my breath steady. No one looked at me directly, but everyone in that room knew I was the reason they had been called in. Not because I caused trouble, but because trouble had finally caught up with her. The attorney pushed the file closer to Claire. "We have recovered messages, timestamps, directives sent within your first hour in the role." Claire's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted toward me for the briefest second, sharp, angry, afraid. It was the same look she had given me years ago in Atlanta, before everything between us cracked. A few hours earlier, she had walked into the office beaming like she had just won an award. She crossed the room in those practiced, confident steps and held out her hand. "Hello, old coworker." Surprised. Her voice was honeyed, soft, pretending she had never once sworn she would get even with me. I told myself to breathe, to be civil, to believe this new job in Charleston might actually offer a calm beginning, but then she leaned in, still smiling, and whispered as if sharing a secret. "I've got a little gift for you." She straightened. "You're fired." Just like that. No evaluation, no explanation, no hesitation. What stung most wasn't losing the job, it was the way she enjoyed saying it. The satisfaction in her eyes. The revenge she had carried for years finally delivered. And now, only a few hours later, she sat shrinking in her chair while the truth unraveled in front of her. I kept my gaze steady on the attorney's hands as he opened the file, ready to read more. The room tightened with the weight of what was coming next, pulling us back to where this story truly began. 2 days before the attorney slammed that file on the table, I walked into the Charleston office believing I finally had room to breathe. My first morning felt calm enough. New badge, new desk, new coworkers nodding politely as they passed. After the chaos of Atlanta, I let myself hope this job might be the reset I needed. Just before lunch, a manager stepped into the bullpen and cleared his throat. "All right, everyone. Our new department director is arriving. Please gather in the conference area." I followed the others toward the glass doors. A soft hum of curiosity filled the room, and then the door opened. She walked in like she owned the floor. Claire Danvers. Her eyes landed on me instantly. A half-second of shock flickered across her face, but she erased it with a bright, sugary smile. "Marin Locke," she gasped, stepping closer. "Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this." "Come here." Before I could react, her arms wrapped around me in an eager hug. Her perfume was the same one she used in Atlanta Sharp. Expensive. Overwhelming. "I had no idea you were here," she said, gripping my shoulders. "What a small world." I forced out a polite breath. "I assumed you were still with Phoenix Cypher's West Division." "Oh no," she said quickly. "I moved on. Bigger opportunities." Her smile tightened. "And now, here we are." Her tone was sugar-sweet, but underneath it was something colder, something remembered. A flash of the past hit me hard. Claire standing in my old office in Atlanta, eyes wet with fury. After I filed the mandatory report, she had leaked confidential client data to an outside partner, insisting it was a harmless shortcut. The investigation shut down her promotion that quarter. She had whispered it then, shaking with anger. "One day, I'll be the one across the table." And now she was. Claire took official control the next morning. By 9, her heels were already clicking through the department like she was inspecting a line of soldiers. I kept my head down and focused on onboarding forms, pretending the weight in my stomach was just first-week nerves. At 9:30, her assistant appeared beside my desk. Ma and Claire would like to see you." I followed her into Claire's glass-walled office. Sunlight hit the room too hard, making everything feel exposed. Claire stood behind her desk with a bright, practiced smile. "There you are," she said warmly. "Sit, please. I want to make sure you feel supported here." I sat slowly. The chair was cold. Claire folded her hands, leaning in as if we were sharing something confidential. "I know starting fresh can be overwhelming," she continued. "So I've been reviewing roles and responsibilities, making sure everything fits our new vision." Her tone was syrup. It stuck to the air and suffocated it. Then, without warning, she shifted. The smile dropped. Her shoulders stiffened. "Let's not drag this out," she said. "We are restructuring. Your position is no longer required." I blinked. "Claire, I've been here 2 days. I'm aware." There was no conversation. No review. No. She raised a hand, cutting me off. "This is final." Her voice sharpened like a blade. From the corner, I noticed a presence, Olivia, the HR representative, sitting silent and tense. She avoided my eyes, fingers twisted tightly in her lap. "HR," I said quietly. "Has there been any documentation?" "Any performance notes," Olivia swallowed. "I was told this came directly from leadership." Claire snapped her fingers once. "Hand over everything, immediately. My badge, my laptop, my access codes." She watched each item leave my hands with a satisfaction she didn't bother to hide. Minutes later, I walked out carrying a cardboard box that wasn't even half full. The office had gone unusually quiet. People glanced up, then down again, whispering behind hands as I passed. By the time I stepped into the hallway, my face was burning. The humiliating truth settled in my throat like a stone. Claire hadn't waited for a misstep. She had come for me the moment she gained power. Whatever she wanted to erase, she wanted it gone before lunch. I carried the cardboard box up the stairs to my apartment near the harbor, every step heavier than the last. The door clicked shut behind me, and the silence hit harder than Claire's words ever could. I set the box on the table, opened it, and stared at the few things inside my notebook. A mug, a pen I liked, 2 days of work reduced to scraps. My phone buzzed. It was my sister, Lena. "Hey, you home yet?" "Just walked in," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "How did the second day go?" I let out a shaky breath. "I was fired." There was a long pause. "Fired, Marin." "What do you mean, fired?" "You just started." Claire made it sound like a restructuring. No warning, no explanation. "She fired you on day 2. Lena's voice spiked with disbelief. "You promised to help with Nora's college deposit next month, and Mom's medication. Did they at least give you severance?" "No," I said quietly. "Nothing." I sank into a chair, rubbing my forehead. In the corner of the room, a stack of medical bills sat unopened. My mother's treatments weren't slowing down, and the rent for my tiny historical district apartment wasn't forgiving either. Lena's voice softened. "Email them. Ask for a reason." I already did. I opened my laptop and pulled up Claire's response. 2 sentences. No justification. No details. Just a timestamp and a signature. Lena sighed, frustrated. "This doesn't sound right. Is this even legal?" Her question landed deep. All morning I had replayed my own actions, wondering what I'd done wrong. But now the weight shifted. Maybe this wasn't about me failing. Maybe it was about Claire succeeding at something she'd wanted for years. I closed the laptop slowly. This wasn't restructuring. I said, "She wanted me gone." Lena hesitated. But why so fast? I looked at the empty box, at the abruptness of it all, and the answer felt closer than ever. Claire wasn't protecting the company. She was protecting herself. Something she didn't want anyone to find had pushed her to cut me out before I could even settle in. I pulled every folder from my bookshelf and spread them across the kitchen table. If Claire thought firing me in under 48 hours would erase the past, She underestimated how much I kept. Years of evaluations, project files, emails, every piece of my career lived in these documents. I opened the first binder. My last performance review stared back at me, exceeds expectations across every category. I flipped through older ones, nothing but strong marks. Not a single warning, not a single concern. Whatever reason Claire claimed to have, it wasn't buried in my work history. I dug deeper, searching through old inbox backups. A name jumped out. Claire Danvers. I clicked. A message from years ago appeared, written the night her promotion was halted after the ethics investigation. "You ruined everything for me," it said. No greeting, no context, just that line. I stared at it for a long moment. Back then, I had dismissed it as anger she'd eventually work through. Now, it felt like the beginning of a fuse she had finally lit. My phone buzzed. A new message from Olivia, the HR representative who had sat silently during my firing. "Marin, this termination doesn't follow protocol. Please talk to someone outside the department." I called her immediately. "Olivia, what do you mean it doesn't follow protocol?" Her voice was low, strained. "I should not be telling you this, but there was no documentation. None. No review. No incident report. We are required to have at least 2 written notices for a termination like this. So, what did Claire give you?" "Nothing," she whispered. "She told us not to ask questions." I closed my eyes. Heat crawled up my chest, not from fear this time, but from the clarity forming beneath it. "Thank you," I said, and hung up. I scrolled to a number I hadn't used in years, Judith Hale, an employment attorney who once guest lectured at a workshop I attended. My hand shook as I hit call. "I'd like to schedule a consultation," I said. "It's urgent." Judith Hale greeted me with the kind of calm that made the entire room feel smaller. Her office was tidy, the lights soft, her expression unreadable. She motioned to the chair across from her desk. "Let's start with what happened," she said. I set my stack of documents in front of her. I was fired on my second morning. No explanation, no documentation. Claire Danvers made the decision herself. Judith opened the folder, flipping slowly through each page. She paused at my performance reviews. "These are flawless," she murmured. Then she reached the printed email, the one Claire had sent years ago. Her eyebrow lifted. "She actually wrote this to you. She was angry." I said. "Her promotion was canceled after she leaked client data. I filed the mandatory report. Judith tapped the paper once. And now she's your boss." I nodded. She leaned back, studying me. "Tell me exactly how she fired you." I repeated the scene, the sugar-sweet greeting, the sudden shift, the clipped tone, the demand to hand over everything, and the HR representative who looked ready to vanish into the wall. Judith listened without interrupting. When I finished, she closed the file with a single, decisive motion. "Absolutely not," she said. The words cut through the air with more certainty than I'd felt in days. "This is retaliation," she continued. "Clear, direct, and reckless. South Carolina employment law may be employer-friendly, but it does not allow terminations based on personal vendettas or conflicts of interest. A supervisor with documented animosity cannot fire a former reporting employee without objective justification." My breath caught. "So there's a case." "There is more than a case," Judith said. "There is a trail, and your company will understand that very quickly." She pulled a fresh folder from her drawer and began gathering key pages. "I'm preparing a preliminary dossier for the board's independent counsel. They will not ignore this." For the first time since Claire said the word fired, my humiliation loosened its grip. Something steadier took its place. Resolve. Judith slid the folder toward me. We moved next. The call from Judith came early the next morning. "Marin, HR escalated your case," she said. "The board's independent counsel is reviewing everything." I gripped the phone tighter. Already someone pushed them, Judith replied, and it wasn't me. By noon, another message arrived, this time from Olivia. They're looking through Claire's emails. Someone sent an anonymous tip, check her first hour as director. I read it twice, pulse rising. Whoever sent that tip knew exactly where the truth started. Later that afternoon, Judith filled me in on the rest. Counsel pulled her initial login data. She said, "There are irregularities." "What kind?" I asked. She was silent for a moment, choosing the right words. First, she deleted multiple email threads from her old Atlanta account the moment she logged in. Second, she bypassed the standard HR clearance. All terminations require documentation. Hers has none. I felt a cold rush down my spine. So she left no record at all. She tried not to, Judith said, but the server keeps snapshots. They recovered fragments, enough to prove she acted alone. Before I could respond, Judith added, "They have summoned her." "Summoned," I echoed. "At 4 this afternoon," she clarified. "They want her full digital logs, her printed directives, everything, and she knows what they found." At that same moment, almost like the universe wanted me to witness it, another text arrived from Olivia. "Claire's pacing the hallway. She keeps asking who reported her. She looks scared." I sat down slowly, letting the truth settle. Claire, who had strutted across that office with a smile sharp enough to cut glass, was now unraveling under the smallest tug of the thread she'd tried to hide. Judith exhaled softly through the phone. "This is the beginning," she said. "The wall she built around herself is starting to crack. And behind that crack, everything she had tried so hard to bury was waiting. When the board summoned me that afternoon, I expected formality, silence, a meeting where everyone avoided direct eye contact. Instead, I walked into a room already alive with tension. Claire sat at one end of the long table, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. The board attorney, Mr. Aldridge, a man known for speaking only when necessary, stood behind a thick file. He did not sit. He did not smile. He opened the file and slid a printed page across the table toward Claire. This message was sent at 9:03 a.m. "On your first morning as director," he said. "It reads, 'Terminate Marin Locke today.'" Claire stiffened. That was taken out of context. Aldridge set another page beside it. "This is a recovered draft from the server backup. It cites personal closure as your justification." He tapped the words with one finger. "Care to explain what that means?" Claire's throat worked, but no sound came out. He continued placing pages, each one a blow. Fragments of deleted emails. A thread from years ago in Atlanta showing her resentment, a recovered complaint she had written but never sent, accusing me of ruining her professional trajectory. Aldridge closed the file with a sharp thud. "Claire Danvers," he said, voice low but resonant. "Did you abuse your position to settle a personal grudge?" Claire flinched. "No, absolutely not. HR told me HR." Aldridge cut in. "Was given no documentation. You provided no metrics, no forms, no proof of restructuring." She tried again. Marin was undermining. "I was here 2 days," I said quietly. Her eyes snapped toward me, wide and frantic. "You do not understand what this cost me. You." Her voice cracked. Tears spilled over as she pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. The board chair finally spoke. "Ms. Danvers, this conduct violates policy, ethics standards, and the terms of your employment, effective immediately. You are suspended pending final review." A guard stepped into the doorway. Claire looked at me one last time, her expression collapsing in on itself, and the room felt suddenly hollow. 2 days after Claire's suspension, Judith called again. Her tone was different this time, steadier, sharper. The board dug deeper. She said, "Much deeper. I met her in the lobby outside the conference wing. She handed me a printed summary. This is only part of what they found. Inside the report were statements from employees Claire had managed in previous roles, complaints she had buried, performance reviews she had rewritten to edge out competitors, messages to colleagues pressing them to support her narrative for a promotion she claimed was guaranteed. None of it had made it into her personnel file because she had deleted or altered the digital entries. I exhaled slowly. All of this. She hid all of this. Judith nodded, and the board retrieved every version from backup. The manipulation goes back years. Before I could respond, the board chair stepped out of the conference room. Ms. Locke, we would like a moment. I followed him inside. Members of the board sat in a tight semicircle, folders open in front of them. The chair spoke first. Claire Danvers has been removed from all leadership duties, he said. Her severance package is revoked due to documented misconduct and breach of ethics. He paused before continuing. We owe you more than an explanation. A woman near the end of the table folded her hands. Ms. Locke, you have 3 options. First, reinstatement into your previous role. Second, a formal public apology issued company-wide. Third, an offer for a consulting position with broader scope and significantly higher compensation. Flexible hours. Direct reporting to the board. I looked at the offer letter they slid toward me. That consulting role was one Claire had once bragged she was destined for. I'll take the consulting role, I said. Judith's smile was small but proud. For the first time since the moment Claire grabbed my shoulders and called me old coworker, I felt the weight lift not because she had fallen, but because the truth had finally risen high enough to be seen. The final decision came 3 mornings later. Judith called before sunrise, her voice clear despite the early hour. It's done, she said. Claire has been terminated with cause. I sat up in bed. That quickly, the board found more. A lot more. By the time I arrived at headquarters, a full report was waiting for me. The board had reopened Claire's past promotion files, the ones she bragged about for years. Entire sections were inflated. Achievements she claimed as her own had been completed by other team members. Metrics had been edited. Dates altered. She had built her rise on a foundation that looked solid only until someone bothered to touch it. 2 hours later, the board forwarded everything to the South Carolina Department of Labor. The chair explained it plainly. What she did was not only unethical, it may have been illegal. Another update followed. Claire was barred from holding any management position across the company's national network. Then came the final blow: her professional certification, the one she needed for any high-level cybersecurity role, was temporarily suspended pending a full investigation. When I stepped into my new consulting office that afternoon, a system notification blinked across my screen. Access revoked. Claire Danvers no longer authorized. The words were clinical, detached, no celebration, no commentary, just truth, delivered without emotion. I clicked archive. That was all. A few hours later, as the sun fell over Charleston Harbor, I walked along the waterfront with the offer letter folded in my coat pocket. I could hear distant conversations from the pier, the low hum of boats returning, the world continuing without the chaos Claire had carried like a shadow. I realized there was no satisfaction in watching her fall. The real victory was stepping into a future she had once tried to shut me out of, a future built on honesty, not fear. The chapter closed itself with a soft click, leaving only the open space ahead.